India can still hope to participate in the Football World Cup by hosting one in 2046, 58, 70, but we won't fairly qualify ever, just like we have never done before. It's all because of cricket, cash, and caste. Now, before the Dehadis come and attack us petty bourgeoisies, it's not the fault of your favorite cricket heroes, of past or present. It's actually the fault of. And Indian cricketers have always been richer than Indian footballers. And as a great writer once wrote, is about to say, money always wins. Nice argument. Where's sauce? My sauce is under. Here's a summary of all that pseudo ADHD of a reckless anime fan. Cricket, baseball, football, basketball, and hockey, together known as the Big Four. Aren't sports native to India? Fracking badminton is. Perhaps the ball kind definitely is. So the point being, for these four to get big in India, they had to be imported. Yava Ramesh ain't dropping kabaddi to play football if he doesn't even know about its existence. So the Big Four had an equally uphill battle to get the attention of an average Indian of the late 1700s, let alone become popular en masse. So how did cricket do it? But football couldn't. By being first, cricket was brought to India by English merchants and soldiers at least 100 years before the creation of modern football. So it naturally got ahead thanks to the monopoly effect I talked about here. And as many people have pointed out, it is similar to Gilli Danda, and many other ball and stick games already present in South Asia. So it was easy for us Indians to transition. But football ain't native to Spain. Well, football as we know it today, a game involving kicking a leather-coated pig bladder, has existed throughout Europe since at least the 14th century. So for them, it was merely adapting new rules. No big deal. But for Indians, football was something new and had to be learned from scratch. Also, Indians aren't gonna be into pig bladder and leather, and there was no vegetarian alternative back then. But that's just a theory, hypothesis, conjecture on my part, so don't take it as a gospel. This is what I call a first comer and familiarity advantage. So cricket came first, was similar to a game already played in India, thus it got popular. Not yet those two factors got Indians to give it a try, but for a sport to reach the masses, they had to leave the cities. The British brought 3 of the Big Four to trading cities like Calcutta, where they all grew up together. No, they didn't. To a degree, all 3 were popular in different sections of the city, but cricket was first to cross the urban boundary on stacks of cash. See, cricket has always been a rich people's sport, as the working class never had 5 days of freedom to play around for fun. Man, I just can't with football. It ends too quick. What am I supposed to do after 90 minutes? Get a job. Where? At first, rich imperial officers played this game among themselves, but in a few decades, Indian royals joined in, and the loyal princely subjects of the empire had all the time and money to play unlimited tests, while the pure football and hockey players had to work on the weekdays and got 80 minutes of playtime on the weekends to get ahead and take a decisive lead, only to get thrashed in the last 10 minutes by racist cheaters. The kings took cricket to their provinces and spread it amongst the nobility. They didn't bother with football because it was a latecomer and a poor people's game, and because they were vegetarians, I guess. So cricket came, got seen, was conquered, while the other 2 were still on a boat waiting for their turn. By the time rubber was invented to make the half-beautiful sport vegan, cricket was already in Ramesh's second and third head. But he was an enthusiast first adopter. To climb the rest of the bell curve, cricket did one more thing before the other 3 to establish its dominance. A team of rich Indians, not the tippy top, but close enough, visited the Bay Shines to have a go at cricket. They lost the first time, but won the second, and the Indian papers went, as they say, full French. By the time Indians registered that victory, Britishers weren't regarded as just another kings, but as foreign occupiers. So the news of Indian victory over whites acted as fuel for the nationalist fire. Both football and stickball had similar movements too, but a few decades too late, so the papers didn't go as berserk, and the great cycle of non-Bengalis not paying attention to football began, still going today, strong as ever. But it wasn't an easy path for cricket as I made out to be. Despite the advantages it enjoyed, not many Indians had 5+ days to play. So the popularity, while on an upward trajectory, was slow enough, allowing one of the others to catch up. cricket stopped being invited to the Olympics party because it was too long, and in a few editions, Olympics got popular enough for Indian bougie masters to notice and send a squad in the only sport they were good at. Hockey players got to travel because they were the best. So the nationalist government fitted the bill. Footballers were denied this money because they don't pee. And the embarrassment of losing, not tolerable to Indian parents. Note, I was talking about the past, and in relation to current or future events is a coincidence. Why hockey though? To play football, you need a ball and feet and hands if you pay off the referee. Hockey calls for 11 sticks per side, which raises the skill floor. So why did India go in opposite direction from the rest of the world? Because hockey is also similar to Gilli Danda and Khido Kundi and many other ball and stick games prevalent throughout India. And the balls were vegetarian, so a conjecture. Cricket balls are made of leather, so what are you even on about? Conjecture. And futsal balls can be made of jute and cotton. Cricket was a rich people's sport back then, and whether the laws are religious or constitutional, rich people treat them the same, so they had no problem lathering the leather balls with their bodily fluids. It's always the poor who are a stickler for religious rules. And again, conjecture. There is no source for this piece of thought. I just know of people who will go ew when they discover that these wet AF balls aren't vegan. So once again, opinion. Despite the Olympic success, hockey never managed to break out of the amateur circuit. People paid attention to it once every 4 years and played at home with tree branches and cloth balls. But nothing more ever came out of it. Hockey players were from poor class of Indians, thus could never afford the pro-level infrastructure that the rich royal patrons of cricket had built. Without the infra, there were no local tournaments. To be fair, neither did any other member of the Big Four at popular local tournaments. But this is where affluent cricketers had one more coincidence up their sleeve, which took them to the top. To become a Mohan Bagan fan, Ramesh has to know that something like East Bengal exists. He lived way over here, so how was that ever gonna happen? Thus he never identified with football, but here, and all of here was India, so it was natural for him to identify with the national team. Cricket being rich people's game allowed their players to regularly travel the world and play teams representing faraway countries. In Europe, international football matches were common because all they had to do is walk across a border or something. If Indian footballers and hockeyites wanted to play foreign teams, they had to get on a boat and hope they didn't anger the gods of the ocean. Cricketers had the money to afford the travel, the lodging, and the bribes needed to be given a chance, so they took it and hit the six. They still had to run between the wickets 6 times like it was some sort of a race between the balls. If you scour YouTube, Insta, and Reddit, you will be convinced that cricket barely existed before the 1983 World Cup. Nobody cared for it really, and nobody expected Indians to be any good. But look at all these international bilaterals and trilaterals and pentalaterals. Team India won plenty in the decades prior. Sure, they were underdogs, but not Indian football team levels of underdog. This continued success in international competition can only be attributed to strong grassroots level that cricket always enjoyed because its players had to be rich. And yeah, it wasn't only the rich who played the sport, but they sponsored it, which was a big help to take the sport to a point where it made financial sense to make India's very own first class league. The Ranji Trophy began in 1938. It has happened every year since then and allowed players from all walks of society to play professionally. Football has a similar league called the Santosh Trophy, but go back and compare the numbers. The football clubs always played fewer matches than cricket teams, despite having the same owners, which was the government for most. It didn't help that football games were shorter, so the tournament was condensed to a few months, while cricket could go on and on and on. By the time these tournaments matured, the Royals were long gone, so they had to search for a new source of patronage. Helavi was decades into the future, and papers won't pay for score sheets. So, this is a Prasar Bharati, and you are listening to. Yet again, cricket was the first to broadcast a match on radio, domestic Ranji match at that, years ahead of football. And cricket being cricket had one great card up its sleeve that put the final nail in coffins of all other sports. While the others of the Big Four had 1 to 5 break in their matches, cricket had one at the end of every over. So many more chances for selling pan masala, propaganda, and 11 dreams. Maybe I also should take a drink, but the 12 people who actually watch the damn thing will get very angry. So why bother? Indian football is rich and corrupt like Daddy FIFA. The only use of money they know is to make more money and become more corrupt somehow. Now that the checklist is complete, one last question remains unanswered. Why didn't cricket take off in Europe or China? They had rich people and the number of ads would have been the same. Nope, I sailed the high seas to watch European cricket broadcast of an Indian match. They didn't have any ads between the overs, no banners either, and the commentators went crazy. Football was similar to other European sports, and in the era the Big Four reached the masses, they were going through an anti-imperial phase, so the rich boys game stood no chance. Americans are weird, so they did their own thing, and the Chinese didn't even allow the British into their country. The circumstances in India aligned just enough for cricket to prosper, leaving the others to struggle for forever. But maybe there is a chance. A new World Cup is in town and India might actually do well this time. Let's check the... Wait, what? Oh, did ICC writers write this shit?